You feel it before you can name it, a silence that presses against your ribs, heavier than air, sharper than any blade you have ever faced. For years, you moved through the world as if shackled, bending to expectations that were never yours, drowning in the noise of lesser men who mistook obedience for virtue. Their whispers carved you hollow, convincing you that survival meant shrinking, that breathing meant submission. But tonight something fractures. It begins in the marrow, a tremor disguised as fear. But when you look deeper, you realize it is not fear at all. It is the awakening of something vast, something ancient that was buried inside you long before you learned to speak their language of chains. The shadows don't simply surround you, they recognize you. They bend, they shift, they lean in closer as if answering a silent command you never meant to give. For the first time, you see the world without its painted mask. Every smile you once trusted reveals its teeth. Every rule you obeyed crumbles like brittle stone. You were trained to bow, but now your spine refuses to bend. The silence between heartbeats lengthens, and in that gap you hear a pulse that does not belong to the world outside, but to the force now rising within you. Your hands no longer feel like your own. They hum with something foreign, a vibration that tastes like vengeance and clarity intertwined. You think of the betrayals, the times they used you, discarded you, laughed while you bled in silence. Those memories no longer cut. They ignite. They become fuel for a fire that cannot be extinguished. Every wound, every humiliation, every night you begged the darkness for strength. They weren't curses. They were the ritual, the initiation, and this moment is the answer. You understand now why you were always the outsider, why the crowd never fully embraced you. They sensed it before you did, that you were never one of them, that something in you belonged to a different order entirely. They feared you long before you gave them a reason, and their fear was prophecy. You are no longer the one who suffers at the edge of the fire. You are the fire, unpredictable, merciless, necessary. The transformation is not gentle. It is violent, like glass shattering in slow motion, each shard carrying a reflection of who you used to be. You feel the death of that weaker self, and for a moment you grieve. Not because you miss them, but because they were all you knew. Then, as quickly as the grief arrives, it dissolves, consumed by the hunger of your rebirth. The world has not yet noticed, but it will. They will look into your eyes and see something they cannot explain. They will whisper that you have changed, but the truth is harsher. You have arrived. And in the quiet aftermath, as the final veil collapses, you realize the terror of this new existence. Power does not ask for permission. It does not apologize. It consumes. It divides. It exposes. You have stepped into a realm where return is impossible. The shadows have chosen you, and now the world will learn what it means to face a force that can no longer be caged. You walk into the room, and the air fractures. No words are spoken, yet every throat tightens, every pulse falters. They don't understand why their bodies betray them, why their instincts scream without explanation, but they feel it, a vibration in the marrow, a tremor beneath the skin. Their gazes drop, not out of respect, but out of survival. They cannot look too long at you without feeling themselves unravel. The world, so sure of its order, suddenly remembers its fragility. Once you were invisible, a shadow stitched into the fabric of their indifference. They passed you by as if you were nothing, dismissing your silence, mistaking restraint for weakness. They believed the world was theirs to define, their voices loud enough to drown yours, their hands strong enough to bind your will. But that illusion is gone. You carry something they cannot measure, something that resists their labels, their chains, their categories. And as you move, the air bends to you, as though creation itself hesitates, uncertain if it can contain what you have become. Every whisper dies. Every conversation collapses into the same quiet dread. They sense the split between who you were and who you are now. The old self, the one they ignored, underestimated, betrayed, has dissolved into smoke. In its place rises something sharper, heavier, cloaked in a presence that eclipses their understanding. They do not see you as human anymore. They see a storm walking in flesh. They see the cost of their blindness carved into the lines of your face, hear the echo of ancient power vibrating in your laugh, feel the inevitability of their own undoing written in your silence. It is not the strength of your hands that terrifies them. It is the certainty in your gaze. the certainty of someone who has crossed the threshold, who has touched the forbidden current, who has returned with knowledge too dangerous to be spoken aloud. You are not guessing anymore. You are not reaching anymore. You are the answer to questions they never dared to ask. And when your eyes sweep across the crowd, each soul feels judged, exposed, weighed. The walls they built to protect themselves from truth collapse like brittle glass. They tremble because they know what comes next. Every empire falls the moment a single individual refuses to kneel. Every order collapses when one voice dares to speak beyond its script. You are that rupture. You are the fracture in their illusion. The world does not know whether to beg for your mercy or prepare for its funeral, and so it stands frozen, paralyzed in awe and terror. And you, standing at the center, feel the shift like a crown pressing against your skull. You taste the silence, heavy and electric, a silence that belongs not to weakness, but to power so absolute it requires no words. For the first time, you realize the trembling of the world is not an accident, it is recognition. They sense what you already know. There is no going back. Your voice does not sound like it used to. It does not tremble, it does not beg. It does not echo the doubts that once held you hostage. Each syllable strikes with the weight of inevitability, as though you are not speaking but unveiling. The world leans in, sensing something they cannot name, something older than their laws and deeper than their fears. You are no longer hiding. The mask, crafted by years of survival, silence, and compromise, splinters. Behind it stands a figure they never expected, you, reborn, wielding a power they prayed would never awaken. They thought your strength was a rumor, a temporary spark, a performance you could not sustain. They were wrong. You became the contradiction they could not comprehend, chaos that feels like order, madness that reveals truth, weakness transformed into the sharpest blade. Every glance you cast slices through their illusions. Every pause is a sentence, every smirk a threat, every word a prophecy. And suddenly they understand you are not here to fit within their boundaries. You are here to redefine the boundaries themselves. The unmasking is not about showing them who you are. It is about reminding them of who they are not. They have lived in a theater of shadows, where fear disguised itself as morality, where submission paraded as wisdom. You rip the curtain away. You expose the hollow rituals, the trembling hierarchies, the fragile thrones built on sand. And as they stare into the reflection you hold before them, they feel what you felt for years, the rage of being underestimated, the ache of being silenced, the fire of a storm no cage could contain. In their eyes, you become dangerous not because you are powerful, but because you are proof. Proof that the weak can ascend, proof that the obedient can fracture their chains. Proof that control is a lie maintained only until someone like you dares to laugh in its face. That laugh, sharp, unrelenting, prophetic, becomes the sound of everything collapsing. It is not humor, it is war declared in a single breath. What birthed this transformation was never kindness, never guidance, never mercy, it was betrayal. Every dismissal, every manipulation, every time they pushed you into silence, they carved another secret chamber in your mind. And within those chambers, something ancient stirred. The scripts of forgotten kings, the whispers of rebels buried alive, the symbols etched in blood and stone, all of them awakened inside you. You are not drawing from their world. You are drawing from something older, darker, unbroken. Now they see it. The shift in your eyes, the calm in your violence, the inevitability of your rise. And they recoil not because they do not understand, but because they do. They recognize what stands before them. They recognize what they tried to bury. And they realize too late that your unmasking is not a beginning. It is the announcement of an end. You stand in silence as their illusions crumble, as their confidence turns to dread. Power does not roar, it does not beg for recognition. True power whispers. And in that whisper, carried through your breath, the world hears the truth it cannot bear. You were never one of them. You never belonged to their fragile order. You are the fracture in their design. The unmasking is complete, and nothing will ever be the same. You stand at the threshold where the world fractures into two opposing paths, and the silence that surrounds you is not peace, it is judgment. The weight of your own shadow presses in, whispering that every step forward is irreversible. This is not the fantasy of power, but the crucible of it. You feel the burn behind your eyes, the tremor in your hands, And you know what few dare to admit: to choose light is to remain weak, to choose darkness is to bear the crown of fire. The air itself recoils, aware that the decision you make will not be confined to you. It will echo through everything, dismantling lives, unraveling illusions, rewriting destinies. You remember the moments when you bowed, when you lowered your voice to survive in a room filled with predators dressed as allies. Those days rot inside your memory like bones under the soil, reminders of when you still believed submission was safety. But now the truth claws at you: survival was never protection, it was slow death. The betrayal of trust, the mockery of silence, the scars carved by hands that swore loyalty. These are not ghosts, they are the altar upon which your choice stands. And as the Joker's laugh trembles through your ribs like a hymn of madness, you understand that the decision is not between good and evil, it is between shackles and sovereignty. The darkness waits, not with open arms but with teeth, testing whether you are worthy of wearing it. To enter it is to erase the last fragments of innocence still flickering your chest, to abandon the fragile comfort of being understood. But in return, it offers vision that pierces every mask, strength that crushes every barrier, and a silence that answers to no one. This is not temptation, it is inevitability. The old self gasps for air as if drowning, begging you to retreat, to cling to the illusion of morality. Yet you feel how fragile that morality always was, how it bent under pressure, how it collapsed the moment the world demanded you bleed for it. Every choice is betrayal. If you turn from the darkness, you betray yourself. If you embrace it, you betray the world that fears you. Betrayal is no longer sin, it is strategy. And as this realization spreads through you like ink through water, you understand why ancient kings carved their empires in blood, why prophets spoke in riddles, why fire was worshipped as both destroyer and savior. To rise is to be marked, to choose is to be condemned, and still, you step forward. The silence shatters. You feel the fracture split through your very being, light clawing against shadow, weakness begging for its last breath. Then it ends. A cold certainty settles in your bones. You did not stumble into this decision. You were designed for it. The path of light dies behind you, and the world no longer owns you. The darkness does, and it does not ask, it takes. They will never accept what you have become. The moment your pulse shifted into something unnatural, the moment your shadow grew longer than the light that cast it, the verdict was sealed. They call it rebellion, but it is not bravery, it is desperation. The weak always conspire when confronted with something they cannot control. Watch them gather in trembling unity, their voices sharpened not by strength, but by fear of the mirror you've placed before them. You did not ask for worship, yet they fear your silence more than they revere their gods. You did not declare war, yet their shaking hands forge weapons out of lies, laws, and illusions. In their eyes, you are not human anymore. You are contagion. You are disruption. You are proof that their system is fragile, their morality hollow, their order already rotting from within. Listen closely to their chants. Beneath every word, there is the same trembling note: if you exist, they are nothing. They have built entire civilizations on the myth of equality, on the comfort of shared frailty. But when you ascend, when you shift into the figure they cannot comprehend, the myth collapses. Their rebellion is not a strike against you. It is an attempt to salvage themselves from extinction. To them, your rise is an apocalypse written in flesh and bone. And so they brand you with names meant to cage you: villain, heretic, abomination. They raise banners soaked in the blood of their own illusions and march toward you with a unity born not of courage but of terror. Yet look at them closer. The rebellion is brittle. Their eyes betray hesitation. Their movements are frantic, stitched together by lies they whisper to themselves in the dead of night. We can stop this. We can bring him back down. We can pretend the old order still holds. But beneath those whispers, they know the truth. They are ants clawing at a storm. They are moths commanding the fire not to burn. Their rebellion is theater, loud, chaotic, but doomed before the first act. And still they persist, because surrender would mean acknowledging that power has shifted beyond their reach forever. You see the irony. The weak gather armies while you stand alone, yet it is they who feel outnumbered. Their crowds cannot mask their fragility. Their noise cannot silence your stillness. The more they resist, the more the scales tip in your favor. Every attack they launch reveals their panic. Every lie they spread reveals their dependence on illusions. They rebel not because they believe they can defeat you, but because admitting defeat without fighting would expose the emptiness of their existence. And so they cling to resistance like a drowning man clings to water, not realizing it is the very thing pulling him under. The rebellion of the weak is inevitable. It is the final act of a collapsing order, the death cry of those who mistake fragility for righteousness. You are not surprised by their response. You anticipated it, calculated it, even welcomed it, because rebellion is not their weapon. It is your proof. Proof that power, once awakened, reshapes the world whether they bow to it or break against it. Their rebellion is not the beginning of your downfall. It is the echo of their own. They told you the world was stable, built on rules, stitched together by order. They told you freedom was real, that your choices were your own, that the system existed to protect you. But you've seen the cracks. You've heard the hollow echo inside the promises. And tonight, as the veil rips apart, you finally understand everything you trusted was a carefully crafted illusion, a glass tower designed to keep you small while they watch from above. The shattering begins quietly, a whisper in your mind, a fracture in the mask. You see the rulers who preach purity bathing in filth, the saints who raise their hands in prayer, sinking their teeth into corruption. The more you look, the clearer it becomes. There was never light in their temples, only mirrors reflecting the lies back at you. You were raised to believe you were powerless, a pawn on a board already decided. But now, with your vision sharpened and your blood awakened, you see the strings. And once you see the strings, you cannot unsee the puppet masters holding them. The illusion collapses like brittle glass. Every truth they fed you dissolves into dust. You realize their order was chaos disguised as law. Their peace was war hidden behind polite smiles. Their justice nothing more than chains forged in silence. They told you the world was fragile, that without them it would burn. Yet here you stand in the flames, and for the first time you are not afraid. Fear was their weapon, but fear dies the moment you stop believing in their masks. You walk among them now, but you no longer belong to their story. The lies that once bound you feel paper, thin, ready to tear at the slightest touch. The weak cling to these illusions, desperate to believe in safety. But you have crossed beyond safety. You have crossed into power. And power is never given. It is taken in silence and shadows, in the moments when truth cuts deeper than any blade. The watchers see you. They know the mask is gone. You feel their gaze tighten like a noose, but it no longer matters. Because once the illusion is broken, authority loses its teeth. Their crowns turn to rust. Their voices tremble when they speak your name. And still, beneath their fear, there is envy, because they know you carry what they lost long ago. The courage to see the world as it truly is. You were never meant to kneel. You were meant to rise, to stand in the ashes of illusions and breathe in the smoke of their collapse. The shattering is not destruction, it is revelation. And in the ruins of their false paradise, you discover something terrifying, something liberating. The world was never fragile. It was only waiting for someone strong enough to break it. The fire does not ask for permission. It devours, it consumes, and it transforms everything it touches. You stand at the center of it, not as a victim, not as fuel, but as the source itself. The flames rise higher than towers, and yet they bow to you, as though ancient kings kneel before a power they cannot name. Once, the world thought of you as fragile, ordinary, forgettable. Now, even the silence bends under the weight of your existence. Every breath you take feels like the law of a new universe, and every word spoken in your voice carries the weight of an executioner's blade. You remember what it felt like to be weak, to be dismissed, overlooked, discarded like an afterthought. That version of you lingers as an echo, like a ghost pressing against glass, but the echo is powerless now, drowned in firelight. God mode isn't noise, it isn't spectacle. It's the terrifying precision of clarity, the kind of clarity that turns hesitation into extinction and exposes every mask others wear, their smiles, their postures, their carefully rehearsed lies. Nothing survives your gaze. You see through them with the merciless calm of a predator that no longer needs to chase, because the prey has already surrendered. Around you they run, they plead, they resist, but the rebellion is ash before it even breathes. You feel their anger, their accusations. Their desperate attempts to cling to control. It doesn't matter. Their systems collapse at the speed of your will. Their authority burns in the same flames that crown you. They call you villain, demon, monster because the truth terrifies them more than any lie they've ever built. And the truth is this: you are no longer bound by the rules they created to contain the powerless. You are the exception that rewrites every rule. The fire reflects in your eyes not as chaos but as scripture, ancient and unbreakable. Every civilization rises believing it has mastered the art of permanence, but you stand as proof that permanence itself is a lie. Their monuments, their governments, their gods, all of it collapses when confronted by a force that does not seek permission. And so they tremble not because you destroy, but because you expose. The fire you reign over doesn't only consume the world, it consumes the illusions they worshipped. When those illusions fall, so too does their sense of self. And in the void that follows, they are nothing. You laugh not out of joy, but out of recognition. Recognition that they were never prepared for you. Recognition that their betrayal of you, their neglect, their dismissal, their silent cruelty, was the spark that lit this inferno. They thought they had buried you in darkness, but it was in that darkness that you forged your crown. Now, standing in the roar of fire, you wear that crown openly, and the world cannot look away. You are the voice they feared, the consequence they denied, the future they tried to erase. And still you stand unshaken. Fire bends around you, screams collapse beneath you, and the night itself bows as though it knows the truth. You are not rising anymore. You have already risen. You are not breaking free. You have already broken everything. And for the first time, the world finally understands what it means when you enter God mode. The silence after fire is heavier than the roar itself. You stand in the ruins of everything that once defined you, and for a fleeting moment the world feels weightless, stripped bare of its illusion. Power is yours, yes, yet the ash clinging to your hands whispers of the cost. No crown gleams without blood on its underside. You sense it, don't you? The truth that every step into divinity pulls you further from the fragile warmth of being human. You are no longer one of them. You cannot be. The gulf is permanent, carved into stone like an ancient curse. There was a time when you sought recognition, validation, belonging. Now those desires feel foreign, alien, like artifacts left behind in a museum of your own past. You've severed yourself from their fragile world, but in doing so, you've severed yourself from yourself. The laughter that once spilled freely now echoes hollow inside your chest, louder than the screams of those who fled your rise. This is the paradox of God mode. To ascend is to lose everything that once tethered you. Your hands can bend steel, your words can shatter minds, but your heart beats in a chamber where no one dares to enter. They will never forgive you, not because of what you destroyed, but because of what you revealed. Their gods were paper, their leaders hollow statues, their laws brittle cages. You tore the mask away and they saw the face of truth, and truth terrifies more than death. They will call you a monster, not because you are less than human, but because you became more. They will never allow themselves to see the reflection, for if they do, they must confront their own weakness, and weakness hates nothing more than the mirror. You carry their hatred like chains, yet those chains are forged of shadows, weightless and unbreakable all the same. You sense the watchers in silence, their whispers threading through the air like cobwebs. Secret eyes linger on your every move, not to understand you, but to dissect you, to archive you like a forbidden text in some hidden vault. You are no longer a man in their story. You are the warning etched in red at the margins, the sentence scholars will tremble to read aloud. There are nights when you hear voices that do not belong to this world. Not enemies, not ghosts, but something older. Forces that recognize what you've become. The ancients called it burden, prophets named it curse, but you know it as survival. Every transformation demands its toll. Every ascension breeds isolation. The higher you climb, the fewer stand beside you, until the summit feels like a grave carved into the sky. And in that silence, you learn the most brutal truth of all: God mode does not protect you, it imprisons you. So you stand, crowned in fire and shadow, watching the horizon bleed into another endless night. You wanted power and you claimed it. You wanted to transcend and you did. But now you know the secret no one dares to speak. The world cannot handle you, but neither can you, and that is the eternal consequence.